Hi, this is Andy with Mountain Computers. Today is April 3rd, 2019. It's Wednesday. It's early in the morning. And we've been off, a little bit more than 5 days. Just working on a lot of different things. But today, I want to talk to you about, we are reorganizing at Mountain Computers for the last probably 18 months, almost 2 years. We're shifting business models. Now, the industry is moving away from computers and repairs to just computers, buy, use, dispose of, recycle. And that's been going on for about 4 or 5 years, and it's come to a critical mass. So we really don't have much retail anymore. We're sort of like a dentist where we are not taking new patients. We have our existing patients, but we're not really open for the retail anymore. We do a lot of businesses still, and we'll continue on both remotely as well as some businesses around the northern Nevada, western Nevada area. But that brings up a good point. We want to talk about employees. Our past employees, not by name, and our future employees, not by name. Just employees in general. So I was reading this article on Forbes, and the article is 4 things you probably didn't know about high potential employees. Now, this was written in 2011 by a guy who's a psychologist with a PhD and all that stuff. I write about it in my blog. But he talks about 4 things that you didn't know about high potential employees. Now, I know these things and more, but I want to touch base with you on them. And I'm just going to go down those 4 bulleted points and talk about how we are going to both leverage that and enhance it. Okay? So, 1, the first thing you don't know about high potential employees, he says, is performance is not potential. Okay. Emergence is not effectiveness. Okay. Development is not universal. And every high potential employee has a dark side. So let's go into each one of those points. Okay, so the first one, performance is not potential. I wrote down some notes. When you play baseball, they do statistics on baseball players. They have your batting averages, your RBIs, all that stuff. Those are statistics based on performance. However, this gentleman says performance is not potential, yet it is. When it comes to leadership, and what he says is the ability for somebody who's an individual contributor to jump to being a leader, you shouldn't look at their successes and determine whether or not they can be a leadership person. Well, that's true and false. You can have a potential leader who's been a great follower who now gets the opportunity to be a leader. Now, you don't give them, keys to the castle, but you test them on some very critical leadership possibilities. Low risk, high return, high reward, and start them on little stuff. You'd never give somebody the keys to the castle when you start somebody out as a leader. You warm them up and work them in. Now, if the situation's critical, like wartime or something like that, sometimes leaders naturally aspire and just come to the forefront that you never knew were there. Now, that's possible too. But I always said, I always have more successes than losses. Now, my years at Microsoft, I had 22 major projects, 21 wins, 1 loss. That 1 loss was because I took the project over from another person who was failing, who eventually got fired. And I said, give it to me. I'll give you 45 days. Either I'll fill it or kill it. One of the two, okay? So in 45 days, I brought all the VPs together and said, yes, we're going to lose $1.5 million and some change. And it's bad, but we ended up fixing that through the course of our communications and working with all of our business partners and stuff like that. That was a good win, yet it was a loss. So is potential based on performance? Absolutely. The other thing he talked about is potential leaders will not be around forever. So if you see a potential leader and you don't grab onto them, they'll be gone. For example, me. I look for opportunity. I also want to help people. So the balance is, do you take advantage of a potential leader or do you work them into the schedule? Do a little of both. Take advantage and say, hey, I think you're a potential leader. We don't have anything right now, but we'll get right back to you. So headhunting companies looking for potential leaders should say something like that constantly. When they see somebody come across their desk that they say, you know, I don't have anything for you right now, but you are definitely somebody who needs to be on our watch list. And there should be a file for those where you just pull out and say, you know, I got somebody. I do that. I know people who can fill gaps and holes in a heartbeat, and they'd be willing to and want to, and that's very important. So what's the next thing this guy says? Emergence is not effectiveness. Now, he was talking about, what is he talking about? Oh, so a leader comes about. Are they effective? Do they have all the traits and qualities that it takes to be a leader? That's a grab bag. You want somebody who can listen, who's compassionate, not narcissistic, not arrogant. Somebody who is a good communicator. Somebody who appreciates the mixture and diversity of a team. That's very important, is the mixture and diversity of a team. Now, you shouldn't force mixture and diversity, gender on a team. It sort of naturally happens. Now, if HR comes in and says, we got to have X type of leader with these type of token traits, well, you got to include that feedback. Now, you don't have to make that decision because HR said so. You just note what HR is suggesting. Remember, HR doesn't run the company. They just keep you out of trouble. And so as a manager or leader, you decide to either take risks with or without HR's advice. Not device. So is emergence is not effectiveness. That's true, because you can find somebody who is a good leader and they're not effective. They can't get things done. Yet they have these great ideas, lofty goals, dreams, rosy glasses. But you really need to have somebody who can get things done. And that's why they used to say, if you want it done, give it to Andy. Because not only am I a good leader, I'm pretty effective on most things. 99% of the things. Otherwise, I'll just say, that's over my head, or that's not in my wheelhouse, or if you really want me to do it, you need to give me a little extra time to understand the situation. So I may make a bump, a mistake, a faux pas, but it shouldn't kill us or destroy us. It'll just be like, hey, you're just working out the kinks. Development is universal. That is very true. Development is universal. Now, what he says talks about IQ, ambition, altruism. All those things are important. Leaders, he talks about training and development. Leaders who are natural leaders will constantly evolve and develop. They'll incorporate new information. Try not to filter too much out that may be negative or critical of them, but it will also add to their ability to grow and move on. Now, leaders won't always be in the same position for a long time. You should find out when you get a leader whether or not they're going to be there 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10, 15. If they're older, maybe 5 to 10. If they're younger, maybe they're a mover and shaker. Maybe you want to try them out as a director. Move them to a VP. Now, if they move to a VP and they become ineffective, move them back down to director. It's not a demotion. I mean, Captain Kirk on Star Trek, they moved him to admiral, but he's not an effective admiral. He's too much of a, he likes to ride in the saddle. He likes to be captain. He's more effective at captain. The fact that you acknowledge that he could be an admiral, well, that's true. I mean, you look at people and you say, it's not like you can be so much more. You are more, but you're most effective here. Now, I get that kind of feedback and say, you're really good at these things, and I know you want to do those things, but where do you want to be? Where do I want to be? I like to be helping people. I like to have a walk-around management style. I like to research. I like to get my hands dirty. I like autonomy. I like to work through an organization. Some people say, well, you need to be in the box. On the org chart, you're in this position and you can't go outside the box. Well, leaders aren't that way. They understand boxes and org charts. However, they also understand fluidity throughout the organization. What you do here can affect other organizations and vice versa. So keep that in mind. Development is universal. So if you're hiring for a leader, first thing I want to know is there a professional development plan and budget for their team and resources? If there's not, or there never was, there's an opportunity for consideration, let's put it that way. If there's no need because everybody's smart and it's a small team and they don't need that, then that's fine. We get that. Self-taught leaders are fine. Every HiPo has a dark side. High potential employees have dark sides. I have dark sides. Don't yell at me. I already told people that. And those that don't listen, that's fine. That's okay. Other dark sides. What did I write down here? Oh, this is very important. Leaders must understand that 20% of the people do 80% of the work, and they understand the reward and the reward mechanisms for that. 80% of the people do 20% of the work. That's just mathematically balanced. Now, if the team is really small, then everybody is rowing all the time. So if you have a company of 10 or less, everybody's rowing. If you have a company of 100 or more, then those statistics might fall into place. But if you have a team of 10, there will be one or two that are not high performers. And that's not bad. They just shouldn't be in high performance or high performing positions. They should be like maintainers and sustainers, to where they show up on time, they leave on time, they take their lunches, they like predictability and stability in their schedule. That's okay. It's not that they're a high performer per se. What they are is a constant performer. Okay, so are these people have potential to move up in the organization as it grows? So your company goes from 10 employees to 100 employees. Where do those two in the future 20 fit? As the leader of those 20, that 20%, I've looked at that, I've done that. Where I've taken one person who had 2 and their department went to 10, 20, and I put them as a manager. Yeah, they needed some professional feedback and development, but they had the experience and they had the leadership traits that were required. Now, nobody comes fully prepared. I would prefer somebody to come on board that's half qualified and the other half coachable. That's what I was told once by a really good friend, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's me. I don't know it all starting, and I shouldn't. If I do, then maybe I'm overqualified and I'm too rooted in my ways. But most leaders are flexible and they are adaptable. Just like in relationships with people, not everything's going to be perfect and rosy all the time. So you have to adapt. You have to forgive a little bit while somebody's growing. Some people just never change. Well, either accept them or not. If you don't accept them, then things aren't going to work out. And I understand how that works. Some people just are too stubborn to, like me on some things, to adapt. But that's okay. You take the good with the bad. You can't have perfect. If you want perfect, there's places for that. So those 4 points. Let me talk about my notes here. Got some notes. Think about leaders and those 4 points. Leaders change hats and they change gears all the time. That's one. Adversity at all times. Have the ability to be adverse. Be patient to a point. You'll always look for opportunities. If you make a mistake early, it's better to make a mistake, a small one early, than a big one later. That's a very important point. I made one this morning like that. Because I hadn't done something in 20 years, when I went to do it, we sort of nudged into it, and I was like, oh man, I just made a mistake that I forgot that I made 20 years ago. So it didn't hurt too much. Monetarily, it was like 40, 50 bucks. Thank God it wasn't 500 or 600 bucks. So pull back, make the adjustment, continue on. Plan ahead. Prepare for storms more than one. High potential employees should always be able to look at the horizon, see where the horizon is, know where the horizon is, communicate that, and know what's on the other side of the horizon. Let's talk about high potential employees and headhunting companies. Especially, one of them is Robert Half, I've worked with. Tech Systems, K-Force, Siemens Business Services. All of these I have experience with. Even the Brain Team. those things I said at the beginning about what these headhunters should be doing versus what they do. Yeah, they can take your resume, fill out an online form, but if it's a high level position, it should not be part of the regular apply here, click, fill out the form. If it really is an executive search, it should be the old school, the bricks and mortar kind of way. So let me put that on hold for a second, and I'll be right back.